Hello, Liberty lovers. Welcome to the Scottish Liberty Podcast number 17 with me, Tom Laird, and
me, Antony Sammeroff.
Today we're honoured to have a special guest on the show. We have Alan Melville.
Of UKIP.
Still of UKIP, yeah. Nice to have you on the show, Alan.
Thank you very much.
Alan and I shared the platform before during the Leith by-election 2 years ago. For the council. I was impressed at that time with his local knowledge and his ability as a public speaker. So it's particularly great to have him on the show. So we'll get stuck right into it. First of all, Alan, I'll tell you what, give us a brief resume of your political activity. What were you before UKIP?
I was sort of Tory. I was a Tory candidate, actually, at one point, although I was never actually a member of the party at the time.
Right. Okay.
They had a defection, and a friend I knew who was running for council.
Yeah.
I said, "Aren't you running for Holyrood?" And he said, "No, but we've had a defection. Would you do it?"
Okay.
So they chucked me into Adrian Shops at 3 weeks' notice, and I was campaigning in a leather jacket and a Motorhead t-shirt, and as you know, my hair a little longer than it is now, so it was actually about mid-back,
right,
saying, "Hi, hello, I'm your Conservative candidate," and I got a lot of laughs, but not a lot of votes.
Okay.
I scraped into third, beating the Scottish Socialist Party by about 40 votes.
Well, that's satisfying.
Surely,
in itself. Right, okay.
And then I joined UKIP after the incident in Edinburgh where Nigel was basically locked into a pub because people weren't going to let him speak.
That late? Okay.
And I've always been a Eurosceptic, but I wasn't thinking of joining UKIP.
Right.
But when I realised, look, no one's going to let this guy speak,
Yeah.
I thought, no, sorry. Freedom of speech is you either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
And you can't just mob somebody and not let them speak. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
At that point, I thought, right, I'm going to join UKIP. So I officially joined UKIP about 2 years ago.
All right.
Right, wow. So let's face it, UKIP doesn't exactly have a sterling reputation in Scotland. It's often maligned. You've been called racists and all sorts of other things. I remember looking at the manifesto on your site several years ago, and at that time I thought it was pretty right-wing for me, and there were some things in there that I didn't like. Having read the Scottish UKIP manifesto more recently, there's a lot of stuff in there that I agree with. You guys seem pretty good on civil liberties, and you actually have an excellent presentation on YouTube right now on civil liberties that you gave the SNP and civil liberties. And I just want everyone out there, check out Alan Melville's presentation on the SNP and civil liberties. It is excellent. But I just want you, before we get started, to clear the air, clear any misconceptions that people have about your party, and tell us the real story.
Well, UKIP are basically a libertarian party. Not perhaps to the same degree you guys are,
right,
but we believe in civil liberties. We believe in individual rights above the state. I think there's a significant, certainly in England, almost English nationalist wing,
right,
who take as their bread and butter Magna Carta, the 1689 Bill of Rights, all this stuff,
right,
which is all good, all good stuff. I put it in a speech, it was an assessment speech, that we object to the EU not just because it's a corporatist bureaucratic behemoth, which it is. We object to that too,
Absolutely.
but because its legal system is fundamentally at odds with our own legal tradition,
right,
where they have an inquisitorial system, whereas we have an adversarial system.
Right.
We have trial by jury. By and large across Europe, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's simply incompatible. And the European Court of Human Rights, European Court of Justice, which is the supreme body of the EU,
yeah,
these people are activist judges. They're not people who have sat in criminal courts. They're lawyers appointed by each country as the activists, and their whole job is to extend the acquis communautaire and remove the powers from our elected officials. Now, if you want a voice, you have to be able to get rid of the people you put in power. And I can't get rid of a judge in the ECG. I can't get rid of Juncker or Barroso or any of these people. You can't get rid of them. I didn't elect them. I don't have a say in them. There's no pan-European political party.
Yeah.
There's no pan-European demos. when you get down to brass tacks. And you must have a pan-European demos if you want a pan-European
Explain what a
democracy.
demos is for people who might not know.
We must have it's easier to describe it as, the UK has a demos, a pretty much homogeneous, sharing similar cultural norms, similar belief systems, similar understanding of politics and democracy and how their vote works. That doesn't apply. Legal and constitutional arrangements in all these other, say, Poland and Hungary and Austria and France, Germany and the United Kingdom, Sweden, are all of them slightly different. In many cases, vastly different. And the understanding, therefore, of the citizen and how they affect their government and their rights under that government are very different in all these different countries. So there is no generally shared political culture in Europe.
And I think I'd be right in saying that at one time, I think probably it's still on the table, that the EU had proposed that every region in Europe, which would include Britain, Scotland, should have a EPP, a European Public Prosecutor, which would mean that European law would have a bearing in our own legal system. Now, not a lot of people know this, but there are many places in Europe where I believe that, I'm sure it's the case, where, for example, here in the UK, you do not have to identify yourself to a policeman. Okay?
Sure.
Right. You unless he suspects you have committed a crime, for just normal purposes, you don't have to identify yourself to the police. However, and he must identify himself to you.
Correct.
There are many places in Europe, and I think including Germany, where that's conspicuously the opposite way around.
Exactly.
And you have to identify yourself constantly to the state. That's just a simple thing, but that's a basic difference between our
It's
system.
a basic political and culturally political difference.
Yeah.
The other issue is, you were talking about European public prosecutors. You've got Europol. Now, Europol, the officers of Europol have diplomatic immunity.
Okay.
Straight up, I'm not actually joking. These guys, so you have somebody, now they officially can't make arrests, but they can instruct local police forces, national police forces, to make arrests and make investigations.
Okay.
But the people in charge have diplomatic immunity.
Right.
That means you can't touch them. Literally, they can't be arrested. They can fit somebody up and they can't even be charged for it.
Right.
They only have to have. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Genuinely terrifying. I don't know about you. I'm sure we all saw Lethal Weapon 2. You couldn't even give me a parking ticket, but that's the position we're in. Mm-hmm. And you've also got European gendarmerie now. Now, the great thing about European gendarmerie, that's very much as a paramilitary police force. Yeah. Yeah. France has had a gendarmerie for a couple hundred years, maybe 100 years certainly. But it's not controlled. The European one is not controlled by national governments. They can only operate in a country by invitation. They can't go in without invitation. Yeah. But once in, if Britain invites the European gendarmerie into the UK, Britain would have no say. The British government has no say in what they do and how they act. And that's true of any other country in Europe. So if the European gendarmerie are operating in Italy, the Italian government has no say in how they operate. And that's really quite scary.
Well, I find it frightening.
A paramilitary force with that means they're guys. These are guys armed with machine guns, with powers of arrest, powers of detention, powers of interrogation, and you as a citizen have no recourse over these people because they're not controlled by your government. Your government can't stop them. You can't change your government and say this is a bad thing. Yeah,
but obviously the reputation of UKIP goes. People would say the same things. It's the same. It's like a broken record almost. You've got. Don't get me wrong. I think as a young person,
I've been called to my face in a political hustings by representatives of the Greens, representatives of the SNP. In fact, the SNP person in question is now an MP.
Right.
And very briefly by a member from the candidate from Left Unity. All of them called me both a racist and a fascist to my face.
Okay.
And actually, to be specific, they said I belong to a racist and fascist party. It's a very fine line to draw. If they called me it directly, then I can sue. Right. But by claiming the party it's much harder. It's much harder to deal with.
To me, if you can demonstrate that UKIP isn't a racist and fascist party.
It's not particularly difficult to prove you're not fascist.
For those who believe that, tell us the case. why they're so misled, and why do they think that?
I think they're misled because of the sixth form politics that you get from the progressive left.
Yeah.
Their favourite tactic has been for at least the last 30 years. If
it's really stepped up in the last 10 years, though.
Oh, very, very much so.
Especially in the last 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah. They want
Sexist,
you shut down debate,
racist.
scream, racist, sexist, Islamophobe, homophobe.
And
I mean, the classic one was the London Gay Pride trying to ban UKIP LGBT guys. Because you're gay, you're not allowed to vote UKIP, so you can't go on Gay Pride. I mean, it's just like,
that's ridiculous.
It's insane. Yeah.
So the only people
to be fair, David Coburn took Peter Tatchell on very well on the Daily Politics of that one.
Okay.
And to be very clear to Peter Tatchell's a man I admire quite a lot. To be very fair to the man, he actually rescinded his comments about a day later. So after having thought about it, he said, "Yeah, you've actually made a good point. Your sexuality does not define your politics. It does not define which way you're going to vote. It doesn't define the political party you will vote for or be a member of."
I mean, it seems to me that the only people acting like fascists in that instance was the Gay Pride.
And it's wrong to call them the progressive left, because they're the regressive left. And because their policies are regressive. Only yesterday, someone basically insinuated that the only reason why we'd be criticising Clinton or putting her on a level of badness with Trump is that I'm sexist. And you think, really, are we going down that road? But the thing is, I've learned on Facebook to just turn it around on them and say, I find the insinuation that I might be sexist, substitute racist, incredibly offensive. And made a point. And usually, if they're not the worst hostile kind, they'll start backtracking and go, "Oh no, I wasn't saying you were sexist. I was just saying that people might think." Because the one thing you're not allowed to do is offend someone, according to these people. Now, I'm really sorry.
The problem is that these people are instinctively offended.
I know.
Yeah. Well, it's offensive to say somebody's wrong.
But it's worse. They're not offended personally. They take offence on behalf of other
that's
people,
what annoys
even
me.
though these other people may not actually be offended.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is actually very, very scary. It's actually the mentality behind that is frightening.
Bending over backwards to be offended.
But it's worse because it's incredibly patronising. So if you, the one that was came up the other day was there was a joke. Somebody made a joke on stage that he couldn't see a black security guard. And the black security guard just laughed it off. But the professional offensive taker took offence about it.
It was Gaza. It was Paul Gascoigne. Yeah, he was doing some sort of... he's got to make money somehow. He's doing some sort of gig. And he said, "Smile so I can see you."
Yeah.
That's what he said to the guy.
And the guy... But, the security guard just laughed it off as... You're an idiot.
Oh, but
what did he get? $2,000 fine?
Racism.
Yes, exactly.
Internalized. He doesn't even realise that he's being oppressed, so people need to get offended on his behalf.
But it's worse because they didn't just get offended on his behalf. The guy making the comment, Gaza's charged for this. He's framed for this. We have a police force in Scotland that has a unit entirely dedicated to policing Twitter.
That's unbelievable.
And that's it's spreading in England as well.
And yet they cannot. I mean, during my job, I've had the cause to call out the police maybe 20 times in the last 3 years. They have yet to attend. Police Scotland have yet to attend. Even on 999 calls, the best I got was about an hour. And what they will do, you'll find this will happen. You say, "Look, something's happening outside. There's a disturbance. Could you come?" You'll get a phone call about 2 hours later saying, "How's that going?" You say, "Well, it's all over now." "Okay, right, fine." The very fact that they've phoned you, they will mark that down as an attendance. So they tell you they have no manpower, they have no money, and yet they have the manpower and the money to set up this unit and police the internet and arrest people for teaching their dogs to do a Hitler salute.
As a comedian once said, so what if you're offended? Nothing happens. It's not like your arm falls off. You don't wake up the next morning with leprosy. And listen, people, we really need to raise our game here.
Yeah.
We need to start talking about reason and evidence and not attacking the character of the person we're debating with. If you think they're a bigot, good, block them. Tell all your friends not to speak to that guy or not to buy food from their chippy or whatever it is. But this relentless name-calling has actually devalued the words sexist and racist and homophobe, where they actually need not be applied. And now it's getting to the point where the alt-right and stuff is celebrating this, and just whenever anyone says sexist or racist, they go, ha ha ha, oh, you said sexist, lol. And it's become a joke.
It's getting to Godwin's law, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you start bringing that in, you're starting to lose the argument. And this is part of the problem. We've been portrayed as a party.
Okay.
We've been portrayed as this obsessed with race, obsessed with immigration, obsessed with...
In fairness, there's been a few members of the party that haven't helped you along.
To be fair, there have been people who've made those comments.
Yeah.
But
they were expelled, weren't they?
They were. In fact, I personally was suspended during the just after the referendum campaign.
Okay.
Because we'd been at the foot of the walk,
right,
and we'd been handing out leaflets. And grassroots out, it's not a party political thing. So we had Labour Party members, we had a couple of SNP guys, we had a guy from Greece. Interesting, a guy from Greece is trying to get us out of the EU. Right. But one of the people there, I didn't know who he was. He turned out to be Kenny Anderson, who is a partner of the Scottish Regional Organiser for the BNP.
Okay.
And I was photographed. We were in the bar after, we were sitting there. And somebody took a photograph, and we all sitting there, and that got published on a blog. Yeah. And it's like, UKIP guys with BNP, you know.
I didn't even know.
I didn't know them from a bar of soap. But so what I had to do, I had to go online and point out that we didn't know who they were, and that we wouldn't be doing it. We obviously now we knew who they were. Yeah. We would not be associating further politically with them because the BNP are pretty much beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned.
You heard it from a UKIP.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we are actually. I don't know about Scottish Libertarians, but UKIP has an official policy. If you're ex-National Front, ex-BNP, ex-Britain First, you're not allowed to be a party member. End of. Right. And if we find out after that you joined and you had been,
be kicked out. You're trying to keep squeaky clean.
Well, the problem is we have to. Yeah. I mean, the fact that Labour...
Because you're under more scrutiny than any other party.
Exactly. Well, Labour in the north of England have, I think, 4 ex-BNP councillors.
Wow.
But, you know, but no one mentions those. Well,
there are certain similarities between...
Do you guys have
we don't have that. If we did have that policy, I wouldn't be a member of the Scottish Libertarian Party because in my past I was involved in extreme right-wing politics. I no longer believe in that. For starters, statism, you know.
It's funny actually. These guys actually are genuinely big state.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at like Nick Griffin's mob, and they are. They're actually much closer to the Jeremy Corbyn type tendency where the state controls everything. Yeah. Well, if you take away the actual racism, the policies are almost identical.
Well, that's the thing. They want the government to be daddy. Labour want the government to be mummy. They still want the government to be our parents. Yeah. Now, one of the peculiar and interesting things of our show is I used to be a leftist. Tom used to be on the far right.
To the right of Genghis Khan.
And we both came around to being libertarians, and I don't think there's any turning back once. But the thing is, to call a libertarian a racist, which I was having a conversation about slavery on Facebook and just pointing out some of the interesting facts about how lots of slaves were Irish, how just as many white European slaves were taken to the Middle East.
They were regular slaving raids by the Barbary Corsairs.
Yes.
Yeah. An entire town or something was
there was
taken
an insinuation that might be racist. I said, you know what? It's pretty unlikely that I'm going to be racist, given I'm a rabid individualist. And racism is one of the crudest forms of collectivism, you know? Right, let's talk about a point where your party is certainly to the right of me. I want to know why UKIP says they're for so many cuts, but they want to increase military spending. Is that not just living up to the worst reputation of being on the right, which is, they say they're for small government and they want to cut things for the most vulnerable, but the first thing they're going to do is increase the military spending. as Thatcher did, as Reagan did, and many in the right have.
Interesting point. Actually, under Thatcher, I believe it was the first time, it was 1986, Thatcher was the first Prime Minister under whom NHS spending overtook defence spending.
Right.
But there you go.
Right, okay.
Interesting.
But that's something I embed somewhere. But the first duty of any government is to protect the citizens. Protect them internally from criminals.
Okay.
And to protect them externally from exterior enemies.
Yeah.
We have cut the British Army to the point it's no longer an army. It's literally not an army. Officially, an army has to be over 100,000 strong. It's now a militia.
Okay.
The Royal Navy, if I recall correctly, around 1997, they were asked by the incoming Labour government, how many surface ships do you need?
Right.
And they said, I think it was 37. And it was cut to 29. We've cut the military to the point that we're building a couple of aircraft carriers across the Forth.
Yeah.
And we can't actually afford to put the aircraft on it, and we don't have the escort ships because we've cut the military to that point. It's utterly, you've got to balance it.
I get that, but is it okay? Let's look at it from this point of view. I genuinely don't know. I'm not privy to the information that people in government are privy to, so I really don't know. But I would need to at least ask I think it's good to ask the question. Do we really need? We are not, despite wanting to be, we are not the military power. We are not the
hegemon.
We're not the empire that we once were.
Yes, Pax Britannica is long gone.
Yeah. Who are we going to war with? Do we have the capability to defend ourselves as is? Or do we really... No, if you need them, you need them. That's it. But do we really need these aircraft carriers? Do we really need these nuclear submarines?
Aircraft carriers? I don't honestly know. I'm not an expert. I can say that as an island, all our foreign trade, by definition, comes by sea.
Okay.
Therefore, we have to be able to keep the sea lanes open in the event of any conflict. And while you have allies, you've got the moment the United States is an ally. You have France as an ally, but that's not always been the case. You have to be able to protect your own trading interests. Take, for example, 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, and there were sufficient forces available to stop them. What we forget is if you put 10,000 men in the field, they're going to be in the field for 3 months.
Yeah.
After which they're away refitting for the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And another 10,000 men have to go in. Another 10,000 men have to be ready to go in to replace them. So for every soldier you put in the field, effectively, in modern warfare, you need about 3 times that many. That's why the British Army is so overstretched. We're currently at the point where we would have trouble putting 30,000.
Well, it would be nice if we put 30,000 in Afghanistan. Were you against both of those wars?
I was against Iraq.
Okay.
I was against Iraq. I was actually in Pakistan when the Twin Towers came down.
Wow.
I was teaching in Lahore.
Okay.
And I remember the guy I shared a house with, old boy, he'd been through partition, and he'd seen nothing. He said a couple of cousins and an uncle had been killed. Because obviously when partition, for those listening who don't know what partition was, it's the 1948 partition of India after the British left. And there was a huge wave of Muslims went from India to Pakistan. Yeah. And a huge wave of non-Muslims, Hindus mostly, moved from Pakistan and they all sort of met in the middle of the Kashmir, and they all started killing each other. Right. And about 1 million people died by all accounts. But this old guy shared a house that he'd been through that, and he was literally banging the table, going, no true Muslim would do this. This is an absolute disgrace.
Right.
And he was genuinely condemnatory of the Taliban and how can you give sanctuary to these people? The thing is, we would not have gone into Afghanistan if the Taliban had handed over Al Qaeda. We should not, because that was the demand, wasn't it? The demand was, they've done this is an act of war,
and what they said,
hand them over, and they said no.
Well, actually, the Taliban said, would you please present us the evidence that Osama bin Laden was responsible for 9/11, which hadn't been released or materialised yet. At the time, Osama bin Laden wasn't even on America's wanted list for terrorists because they hadn't actually proven that it was him. And they said, give us the evidence and we'll hand over Osama bin Laden. You had something similar happening when we went into war on Iraq. Let the weapons inspectors back in. Okay, he let the weapons inspectors back in. And they kept on making more and more demands until they found a demand that he wouldn't comply with. I mean, if they needed to, they'll say, right, if you get your willy out on television, then we won't go to war with you. You know? And I really believe there was an agenda there to go to war.
I would agree with that.
I think there was an agenda to go to war in the Middle East long before 9/11 happened. They were ordering medical supplies before a debate happened in Parliament, so they'd already decided to go to war. And I really don't think that anything would have made a difference, because we know about the project for the new American century and how they've been planning these wars for decades. I don't necessarily need to debate you on the Afghanistan war, though, unless you want to come back on that.
No, I'm fine with that. I've not gone into that in detail, so you probably know more about it than I do. All I can say.
Well, I was on the left at the time. I was very anti-war.
I mean, in terms of the Iraq war, what the hell were we doing?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, seriously,
So
that was insane.
Yeah.
Saddam was a loony. No, don't get me wrong. I mean,
and why do we always have to say that?
No.
Can it not be accepted as a given that we're not for Saddam Hussein?
Well, I think it is a problem that you almost do have to say that, because the media will turn around and go, well, if
you're for Saddam.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how could I be for Saddam? I suppose I could be. Yeah. People could say that, because my mother's sister actually married a man who was a brigadier general in the Iraqi army. So my cousin, they have their three daughters are all half Iraqi.
But I think the point is with Iraq that it wasn't just a mistake. I mean, they knew what they were doing at the time.
That's the problem with Obama, right? He said he was against the Iraq war because it was a tactical error or something like that. Not because it was immoral, not because the president went to war without a declaration of war. You can't just go around picking and choosing which countries you like their government and which you don't, despite what America thinks.
But I think we will all agree that Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, but the world's full of bad guys. China was run by a bad guy. So it's like
this is it. My argument with this was always, who do you pick? All right, Saddam today. What, we're going to do the Ayatollahs in Iran tomorrow? What about the King of Saudi Arabia? Robert Mugabe, King of Saudi Arabia. Chavez in Venezuela. Was it the Castros in Cuba? North Korea. I mean, there are a million bad guys in the world if you want to look hard enough. Yeah. And you can always find an excuse.
Yeah, sure.
I agree. And people say that the anti-war marches and that didn't do any good. Okay, we didn't manage to stop the war. I guarantee if it wasn't for the mass protests against the Iraq war, we would have been in Iran as well. And they could not just continue their endless campaign. And we know that at the time the Dick Cheneys and Rumsfelds and of the world were calling for it. I mean, Bibi Netanyahu is still trying to goad America into attacking Iran.
Okay. I fear we're getting off the mark here.
I would like to discuss...
I would like to. It's a bigger subject than I've got time for, I think. So I think we'll move on to the next point, which is... Unless you're really desperate to
I just wanted to quickly put up a case about military spending, right?
Okay.
And I have said this on the show before, but as far as I know, it's a military fact that you don't need parity of forces to win in a war. As we saw, when we got a hiding in Afghanistan, Israel got a hiding in Lebanon. And
America... pretty much got its ass kicked.
If you put a conventional force into a guerrilla war, that's so far so good. But you have to assume that you're going to have a conventional war. You have to prepare for it.
So you want the Swiss Army knife approach?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can say that you can lose a guerrilla war. That being said, the British Army managed to bring the IRA almost to a standstill. I mean, whether you agree with either side, But ultimately, they were trying to fight a guerrilla war.
You were in the army at the
I
time.
certainly was. I served in Northern Ireland. I don't know. We had 65,000 troops in Ulster.
We don't have 65,000 troops to put into Ulster
Right,
now.
well, that's true. We had 65,000 troops in Ulster. If the IRA had been twice the size of what they were, they could have really gave us a... I mean, we confined it. We managed to control them in Belfast and in Londonderry. The big bugbear was still South Armagh. That was the area that was the main problem, and they caused us a lot of problems there, and they caused us a lot of casualties.
This sort of war is very difficult to win. As you say, you need overwhelming force, and it's very difficult when you're fighting, in effect, your own citizens.
Yeah.
Because unless you're going to... I imagine that Adolf Hitler would have solved it overnight.
Pretty quickly.
He would have done it. But he would have done it by wiping out the entire population. You've got to accept that there are
degrees of badness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to inflict the minimum collateral damage and the minimum damage on your own people and on innocents who are not involved.
Sure.
And that's actually a very difficult thing. And the more we get into modern weaponry, modern weapons are designed for significant injuries and significant.
They're designed to maim rather than kill, because that creates a bigger drain on the enemy's resources than actually just wiping somebody out. So,
which is. I'm not sure if that's actually something that we should be encouraging. But,
no, but anyway. So moving along, what's the point of UKIP? Okay, we've got to the stage
having
now.
won.
Well, you could argue, as I've said earlier, that UKIP's possibly one of the most successful parties of all time. Nigel Farage, you could say, is one of the most successful politicians of all time. They put out a manifesto. This is what we want to do. We want to withdraw Britain from want to withdraw the UK from the European Union. Mm-hmm. They seem to have won that. However, I've got my ideas about why the UKIP still needs to be around, but what do you say? What's the point of UKIP now that you've got what you wanted?
Well, there's 2 points. First off, while we got the vote, we won the vote.
Right.
We haven't won the war yet. We're still in the EU.
Yeah.
Somebody has to hold. I think Diane James put it. We have to hold Mrs. May's kitten heels to the fire.
Okay. Diane May being the new UKIP
Diane
leader.
James being the new UKIP leader.
Oh yeah, Diane James. Sorry.
And we do. Because if you don't keep the pressure on, the establishment will pull it off. I think we're all aware of that there are an awful lot of vested interests which would. They only held the referendum because they thought they couldn't lose it.
Yeah.
Now that they've lost it, they're trying to wriggle out of it. They're trying to resile from the vote. And somebody has to do that. As long as there is a UKIP standing there going, we're winning votes. We've got six members, it should be 7, but Nathan Gill is currently independent. In the Welsh Assembly, you're winning council seats. As long as that's happening.
Will they still get the same support now that people feel that the point has been made and the issue's won?
I think we will. There's a couple of serious issues here. If we look at the north of England, if you looked at the constituency map for the referendum, I don't know if you've seen it, but if it had been by constituency, 400 something constituencies would have voted to leave.
Right.
That's a lot of voters, and they're not represented by Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. I mean, I was thinking out who can represent all these people. Yeah. I mean, Labour can't. Labour is obsessed with identity politics and sixth form debating. Really, they're not interested in representing.
Well, they certainly don't seem to be interested in the working classes.
No, God. Well, if you look at
in fact, they seem to be slagging off the working class at every opportunity.
According to the current Labour Party and their cheerleaders, certainly in The Guardian and elsewhere, the Brexit voters are thick racist plebs,
White van man.
Yeah, White van man. Emily Thornbury's infamous tweet. Yeah. So Labour can't do it. The Tories are in hock to corporatism and the city.
Well, I can agree with you on that and everything you said so far.
Go on. Let me go on. The Liberal Democrats are demonstrating at their party conference that they're not particularly liberal or they're not democratic. Yeah. If you're a Democrat, you accept the vote. the SNP, where we live under them, the SNP, I actually don't think they represent anybody other than the grievance mongers. Their only interest is grievance. The only interest the SNP have is telling the people of Scotland that England is to blame for all their problems and trying to break up the union. That's their only interest. They can't represent...
Well, that and introducing illiberal legislation.
Yeah, name person schemes, arresting people for singing songs. That's a little bit of fascism between friends.
Okay.
But yeah, the SNP can't represent ordinary people, because ordinary people want to bring up their own kids and build their own lives.
Yeah.
The SNP don't want that. SNP want to tell you all how to live.
And keep yourself in power for as long as possible.
That's true, but to them the point of power is to tell people how to live.
Yeah.
Right.
and that's that doesn't represent anything.
Mummy government knows best. The government knows best.
Oh yeah.
Better than you do.
Well,
leave it to the nice experts.
It was funny, I was at hustings at the Scottish Parliament, and everybody on the panel agreed that only a tiny fraction of people abuse their kids. And my point was, so why are we criminalising everybody? Because that's the point of the name person scheme. It assumes it assumes guilt.
Yeah, you're absolutely. As soon as you've had a child, you're a nonce right away.
Right.
Exactly. The presumption of innocence has to be defended by somebody.
Right.
And there's nobody else to do it.
Well,
except for you guys.
But in fairness, we're a small party.
And
we're not huge.
We're a small movement. Until a few years ago, most people in Scotland hadn't even heard of a libertarian. I just want to mention, even if we get out of the EU, we're not out of the woods, because Britain's a member of 60 pan-national bodies at the moment. Many of them are pan-European. Some of them include Norway and Finland. Some of them don't. Some include this country. But they are binding agreements, and they put constraints on us. If you are of a libertarian bent, and there's some people on the left who are certainly very strong on civil liberties, even though they don't believe in our views on economic liberties, then you really need to look at how many entangling agreements and things are being imposed on us that aren't to do... Now, I'm not a massive flag waver in favour of democracy, but lots of people claim to believe in democracy. I personally prefer the constitutional republic model. I don't want people to vote on what colour socks I'm allowed to wear. And I know that might be a trivial point, but it does illustrate why someone might not be for...
The worrying thing about it is colour socks. We've got to that point. We've almost got to that point here in Scotland. We have a bill in force at the moment where you can't sing songs you can't sing certain songs if you're wearing a certain colour of scarf. Yeah. And the problem is they haven't even defined what songs can't be sung by whom. No. It's so wide ranging. I swear, if you were to wear a Rangers scarf, God help you, and go to Ibrox and sing "God Save the Queen" outside Ibrox, you could get lifted for singing the national anthem. But when your law is that badly written and that wide ranging, you've given far too much power to people over whom you have very little control. Yeah. And that is the worrying thing. It's not just the idea behind the laws, it's the fact that they don't define what is actually illegal properly, which allows, and the EU's been very good at this as well, they allow mission creep. It's the ratcheting, the treaties, the laws, everything, every regulation is designed specifically so you can ratchet it up. Yeah. So you can increase the power. And that, you really have to wonder, I think, have they read 1984?
Right. And it's not meant to be a bloody instruction manual.
Exactly. And that's where we're going. These people appear to be taking it as an instruction manual. And with the problem is, it's with the very best of intentions.
Well, I don't know. I think in some cases it is, and I think in some cases you have people who actually get high in having power over others. And I think if you were going to design a society in which you can exclude anyone for whatever reason, a really great way to do it is make sure that everyone is against the law. But for something they're doing. Now, you don't have to enforce the law until you want to get someone.
But doesn't that take us right back to why UKIP opposes the EU and the traditions of justice? The tradition of justice in the UK has very much been, if it's not explicitly banned, go right ahead.
Okay.
Right.
Whereas in Europe, it's not been. If it's not specifically allowed, we can bust you for it.
Okay.
And that's not entirely accurate, but it's a fairly rough dichotomy. It's not specifically allowed, therefore, if you cross us, we can bust you for it. We won't most of the time, but we have the right to at any point. And the tragedy of that is that people who believe in law, they make these laws and they forget that they're enforced by people. Mm-hmm. They're enforced by people, and people with prejudices, people with biases. However much you try and train them, people with their own positions and their own likes and their own dislikes and their own priorities. And if the law is badly written, those priorities are. Those biases come out in the execution of the law. Okay. And that is a fundamental problem, the way we are working our laws and our regulations today, because Parliament here and the Scottish Parliament in Holyrood is very much starting to move into this sort of field. Yeah. I don't know if you ever saw that programme with Michael Portillo in the History of Parliament. There was a very interesting point, and he was doing a thing at the History of Parliament, and he was in Westminster. There's a big room where they have all the laws that are passed every year.
Wow!
And they're all these quite thin volumes.
Yeah.
Up until 1907.
Right.
Wow!
Because that's when they started paying MPs.
Wow!
And at that point, the amount of laws passed that year suddenly were twice as much as the previous year.
Right, and has it grown exponentially?
And it continues to grow every year because it's like we're being paid. We've got to justify our existence,
absolutely.
And that leads to growth of bureaucracy. Yeah. And bureaucracy is, of course, utterly inimical to individual freedom.
Generally, the more laws that a nation has, the more corrupt it is.
And the less free it is.
Yeah, I think it would be quite nice to just burn the building down and maybe just simplify to don't hit people, don't take their stuff, don't defraud or manipulate people, and let's just start again from there. But I think a lot of lawyers and judges will be really pissed off that all that crap we've learned.
I was asked, in fact, Tom, you were there. Right. Oh no, we weren't. It was because it was the same building. Okay. It was for the Scottish Parliament election. And I was asked, what private member's bill would you put forward? We were all asked the same question. Mm. And I said, and I actually quoted it, no freeman shall be taken or imprisoned or be deceased of his freehold or his due customs or rights or be exiled or outlawed or be in any other wise destroyed, nor will we not condemn him, save by judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. Right. We will sell to no man, we will deny or defer to no man either justice or right. Now that's clause 29 of Magna Carta, and it doesn't apply in Scotland, because of course we were separate kingdoms at the time. Yeah. But that, to me, is the ethos of law. Right. Yeah. That's how it should be. Unless somebody stands there, unless you're convicted by a jury, you can't be touched. And then you have to imply. And the
burden of proof is on the prosecution.
And the burden of proof is on the prosecution. The presumption of innocence has to be there. Yeah. That second sentence, that we shall deny or defer to no man, that's the essence of habeas corpus. Okay. Yeah. They can't just bang you up and leave you. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the few stands I've seen a politician make, which I thought was genuinely impressive over the last decade or so, was David Davis resigning his seat when Shadow Home Secretary over the plans of, I think it was Gordon Brown's Labour government, to impose 90 days detention without trial.
Yes.
And that's because it's a fundamentally wrong thing to do. Yeah. I mean, if you've got evidence, arrest them, try them, and if they're convicted, they're convicted. If you don't have the evidence, you can't just bang them up because you don't like them. Yeah. It's just that's more dangerous.
If it was done to me, I think I would confess to just about anything. if I was
That's the point
detained
of
for
it,
90 days without trial. That is that actually invalidates the evidence, because people will do anything if you kidnap them.
Yeah.
They'll say anything.
Yeah. It's a fundamentally illiberal thing to do, and a fundamentally natural thing for big state lovers to do.
Absolutely.
And it's something that I think we, all three of us here, certainly all oppose, but if I can go back to UKIP, it's something that UKIP opposes entirely.
Okay.
It was quite nice to have a speaker at the party conference in Bournemouth just a couple of weeks ago, and he was standing going, I am so proud that I can stand up and say I'm a Jew without being attacked, without anybody actually caring about it, because I'm in UKIP.
Okay.
And that's actually quite worrying. That he felt he had to say that. It was one of our delegates from Birmingham, I think. But it's sad that somebody has to say that.
Yeah.
Because what matters is not whether you're Muslim or Jewish or Christian, or whether your skin's a particular shade of pink or brown. What matters is who you are, what you do with your life, and how you offend, how you deal with other people, how you interact with other people, and
what your values are.
Exactly. If your values include the idea that you can have a slave because they have a different religion to you, then I'm sorry, you're just wrong. Yeah. There's no right. There's no right to this. It's something. I know we were talking about we're not the Pax Britannica Empire anymore, but I find it extremely ironic that it's probably the greatest achievement of the British Empire, because it was not just the abolition of slavery, but the fact that across the globe today, with a few notable exceptions like ISIS, slavery is absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah.
In all countries. And yet human slavery had been practiced for thousands of years by all societies.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it is now beyond the pale. And it's something that we should all be genuinely proud of, and we should stand up for. When we see people being trafficked into prostitution, that's slavery.
Yeah.
When we see somebody bringing in their domestic servant and keeping them in a locked room, and that's slavery. I mean, bollocks to that. None of this stuff should be allowed. It's against the law. It's against every principle of civilization, and we must stand up for that.
Well, you're not going to get an argument out of us on that one, and it's pretty boring when you don't get an argument.
So pick something more controversial.
Well, the first thing I would just say, just briefly, what I would say is, would you? I mean, libertarians. I suppose a fundamental difference between libertarians and UKIP would be, at our core. I'm going to qualify this. At our core, a fundamental libertarian thing would be freedom of movement. Okay, across borders.
Yeah.
However, I think even some of the most ardent extreme libertarians would agree that you cannot have freedom of movement and a generous welfare state at the same time. If we didn't have a generous welfare state, would your viewpoint on immigration be the same as it is within UKIP? That we need stronger borders, stronger immigration controls?
I can't speak for the whole party.
Right.
I can say it would be different.
Yeah.
But it's not because it's not purely an economic issue. It's not purely a welfare issue. It's also a assimilation issue, a cultural issue.
But I mean, you own your own property, Alan. I take it. All right. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Let's suppose we do. This is Tony's flat, and he's got a relation in Canada, America, and he wants to bring their entire family here and live with him in his flat. It's his property. He pays the rent. You know, if they're not going to overload the sewage system in the flat, well, that's his lookout, and I guess his neighbours can sue him for that.
Exactly. So if he gets nailed for that, then that's his problem. The issue is there is an extent where I'm going to call multiculturalism out here.
Okay.
Because multiculturalism has led to ghettoisation. In large parts of this country, it has led to ghettoisation. There are parts of England, parts of cities in England where if you're a young woman, you don't walk in a mini skirt or trousers. You just don't. because somebody's gonna either consider you fair game, or they're gonna scream abuse at you because
that's not culturally acceptable to them.
Yeah.
Exactly, and they have.
They're not being libertarian because they're imposing their cultural values.
Exactly. The tragedy is that a lot of immigrants to this country came to this country to fleeing the problems that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but kind of brought it with.
And to an extent, to extent they did. It's an issue.
Yeah, but it's got nothing. It's got nothing to do with colour.
No, God.
We would love to bring 500,000 Syrian libertarians to Scotland.
I certainly would.
500,000.
I would like to.
And in the same boat, I'd like to. I'm not saying I would or I should be able to. I'd like to put 500,000 white Scottish socialists and send them to whatever utopian, dystopian socialist hellhole they want to go. That's how racist I am.
I should laugh.
I would like to deport the socialists to Denmark and the radical feminists to Sweden and the fascists to wherever they go and the communists to Cuba. I'd also like to actually deport idiots to countries that have an averagely low IQ and save the most intelligent people in those countries.
Okay.
I don't think this is politically correct.
I know. I'm just
getting essential.
I can see your point. I mean, the argument can be made. And it's particularly valid in regard to, for example, Sharia.
Right.
If you want Sharia law, there are 40-something countries in the world which operate it.
Where they have that law.
Yeah.
But don't
try and impose it on a country which doesn't have it. And it's an alien legal system. It's an alien cultural system. Exactly the same with the EU.
Okay, final point, Alan. I don't think we're going to get to your pension funds in this show, but we might do it another time. Yeah. The big one for me, big difference between me and UKIP, Scottish independence. Now, I mean, I was a young Scottish nationalist at one point. I do believe I believe Scotland is a separate country with a separate history. We were the oldest kingdom in Europe. We had our own laws. You could argue that the Declaration of Arbroath is a wonderful document in of itself. Yeah, it gives the people the right to get rid of rulers who do not represent them and does not defend their independence.
There's that wonderful line. If this Robert should cease what he has started and seek to deliver us unto the dominion of the English or any other people, then we shall cast him out.
That is the interesting part for me of any other people, right? So it's not just things, it's anybody who seeks to make dominion over us, and that would include the EU as far as I'm concerned. Now, I would say I was consistently for the principle of self-determination over the principle of union. That's consistently my position. The SNP, on the other hand, are inconsistent. They're for the principle of self-determination when it comes to England and the UK, but they're for the principle of union when it comes to the EU.
Is that not a demonstration that they're actually of the anyone but England?
Well, absolutely. For me, they have demonstrated that what people have been accusing them of for 30, 40 years, which is that they're just an anti-English party, as far as I'm concerned, they've made the case with that. Yep. Now, UKIP, on the other hand, for the principle of self-determination when it comes to the United Kingdom, for the principle of union.
I follow you.
So you get what I'm saying here.
Why do we want to leave the EU and at the same time want to keep the United Kingdom united?
Yeah.
Well, it comes down to partly history, partly shared culture, partly shared ties as separate kingdoms, if you like, England and Scotland. We fought 400 years of war. Basically from the end of the 1200s until the Scots won by James VI taking the English throne.
You can make that argument. I don't know if it holds water, but anyway, go for it.
So you had the Union of the Crowns, but it was still two separate kingdoms, even under one monarch. And then you have Union of Parliament 1707, which led to riots in Scotland, as we all know. And 8 years later, you had the 1715 rebellion. And 30 years later, you had another rebellion.
Yeah.
But since that time, Scots, English, Welsh, Irish have all shared a very great common history and common endeavours. I think.
But none of that has to go, though, just because you separate. I mean, Canada's an independent country, Australia's an independent country, New Zealand's an independent country, yet we still share common bonds and ties. It doesn't have to go.
We do indeed.
Yeah. I mean, how many people get divorced and they get on a lot better with their life after the divorce than they did during the marriage?
Would you federalise? I mean, there was a motion at the UKIP conference in Bournemouth for a federal United Kingdom. It was voted down.
Right.
A
federal United Kingdom with an English Parliament and a Scottish Parliament, and Westminster's only overarching powers were effectively foreign policy and defence.
Okay. I would favour that over the existing set-up, I think.
I'd actually favour that over. I perhaps favour that over independence, because just it seems to make sense not to have two militaries and so forth.
Yeah. What was your own feelings on that?
My own feelings were sort of torn. I could see both positions. I mean, I've got a lot of relatives who live in England. I mean, they're Scots, they live in England, and the idea that we're not part of the same country anymore just doesn't fit well with me. I mean, I remember. I mean,
a lot of people have got relations in France.
Granted, I know what you mean. I've spent 11 years in South Africa. I've lived and taught in Pakistan. I've been to obviously France on extended periods. Even there, even the most Anglo-centric it's probably South Africa. Certainly the English-speaking part of Johannesburg. I mean, everyone's bilingual more or less, but there are an awful lot of people who only speak English, and the feeling that you're British was still there, and I found that the bonds between the English and the Scots were incredibly strong, and it's because of, I think, a shared outlook on life to a large degree. We have borrowed, as you say, we still have separate legal systems, but both sides have sort of borrowed bits from each other. Although the English haven't quite learned to demand corroboration yet.
Right.
Right.
Well, even though the SNP voted to abolish it. Sorry, I had to get my little political dig in. But we've sort of amalgamated an awful lot together. And while we keep our customs and our traditions and our separate outlooks, I mean, I want to see us win at Murrayfield as much as anybody else wants to see us win at Murrayfield. But but we are ultimately, we have always been stronger together than apart. We've always done more for each other as a united kingdom. I mean, the point of the phrase is a united kingdom. I mean, if you look at
but then even an independent Scotland would still be part of a United Kingdom in the sense that the Queen would still be head of state.
I think,
as opposed to President Sturgeon.
Yes.
Right. Well, when it comes to this point, I think at the end of the day, people have sentiments, and some people feel that their sentiment calls them to feel more British than Scottish, and some people feel like their sentiments make them feel Scottish. And I personally, I actually didn't vote in the Scottish independence election. And my justification for that was I thought the vast majority of people were voting based on sentiment and then finding the facts to back up those positions. From a libertarian perspective, I could see a case for independence because it's a smaller government, a smaller whip. I could also see the case against it from a libertarian perspective because, quite frankly, Scotland's full of lefties and they're big government lefties.
Yeah, I accept that.
So
there's also the issue that isn't it another layer of government?
Exactly. Well, perhaps. And the only thing I said at the time was, if you gave me a crystal ball and I could see the future, then I would vote. But to be honest, I thought it was highly ignorant and presumptuous of me to vote, and also of everyone else, given the state of...
But you voted for Brexit, though.
Yeah, but I didn't think that... I thought that was clear cut.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of you two.
I just find it quite bizarre that when you look at the the Remain campaign versus the Brexit campaign, and you look at the yes versus no campaign in Scotland, it seems to me
the same tactics were used.
It's almost as if the SNP and the UKIP went, "Now, you take our script and we'll take your script," right? And
discombobulating.
And you go, I know, all these arguments you're making for remaining are the exact same arguments they were making. Do you really want to put borders up? Do you really want? It's going to be terrible. Giant rats are going to roam the streets eating our children, right?
It's mad, isn't it? I think there are issues here,
right.
But there's one fundamental difference.
And I fear an independent Scotland under the SNP just as much as anybody else does. Right?
I think the fundamental difference between the United Kingdom as an entity and the European Union as an entity.
Do you think it's organic as opposed?
Very much.
Okay.
The UK has sort of gradually melded.
Right.
Yes, you had the Union of the Crowns for 100 years before they actually had the Union of the Parliaments. Mm-hmm. So by that time, the countries were sort of together. In the meantime, you'd had the Bishops' War, you'd had the Civil War, the Covenanters, and all that, where Scots have fought for the King and Scots have fought for Parliament, and vice versa, and they all fought each other, and we'd all sort of got a point where we sort of got along. But
we had a common enemy. I don't want to make a religious thing, but England and Scotland suddenly had a common enemy in Rome. Which actually you could argue is exactly the same situation we're in today.
Some call common enemy in Brussels, yeah. But the point is, it wasn't. Well, you can see there was bribery and stuff, and it probably was for people who pass rogues and all that. But the ultimate result of that, it's done and it's dusted, it's been done, and we've lived with it, and it has been a success. It has been clearly successful. Right. It's hard to say that the United Kingdom is not a successful nation. It is by any standards immensely successful.
But then, if the EU was successful, would you want to still be a member of it? Would you want to?
The problem with the EU is it is not and cannot be successful, because it has not taken the people with it.
Okay.
Without serious levels of probably bloodshed, I don't think that you're going to get a united Europe anytime soon. You're already in a position where, as I said, we were campaigning for Brexit. We had guys from Greece. The Greeks hate the Germans again. But when the French match was coming on, France-Scotland, all the French fans were handing out leaflets and what the place, and they're all going, "Yes, save us from Brussels." I mean, this is the French. People forget. This is it. I mean, people forget that 10 years ago, under the European Constitution, France voted 55-45 against the European Constitution. The Dutch voted 2-1 against the European Constitution. And what did they do?
They just gave them it again until they got their answer.
They took the wrapper off, put a new one on, called it the Lisbon Treaty, then they signed it up. That's right. And I mean, the Labour Party, who were in government at the time, were actually sued. Their manifesto province was a referendum, so was the Tories. Cameron never lived up to that. So an open goal, Cameron could have actually guaranteed a 2010 victory in that election, simply by somewhere in 29 putting forward a opposition day motion for a referendum on the EU Constitution. And because it would have been voted down, he would have lost it. But he's then going, see, we keep our manifesto promises, they don't, and we don't walk the election. It demonstrates the lack of political nous that the guy has. But the point is that somebody actually took the Labour Party to court, the Labour government to court, over that referendum manifesto promise. And their solicitor argued in a court of law that a manifesto promise is not binding.
Wow. Yeah. So that's how much trust you can have.
At that point, you just have to go, no, we've got to do it ourselves. And that's the thing, we've got to do it ourselves. And ultimately, as a nation, this United Kingdom has done it itself for hell of a long time. And it's done a pretty damn good job at it.
Well,
as long as we believe in ourselves, I think we're fine. I don't think.
I won't agree with that, but I agree with one thing: you can't trust the government. So on that note,
Can I finish with an opposite quote for that?
Well, okay.
Go for it.
Lemmy Kilminster, the late and much lamented. Whoever you vote for, the government still gets in.
That's wonderful.
That's true.
So, Alan, thank you so much for coming in the show. Everyone, check out Alan Melville's excellent presentation on SNP and civil liberties. If you want to pick up some of the topics that we've talked about today, we had a Brexit debate. We have a video on the myth of Scandinavian socialism creating success in Scandinavia, where we discuss the consequence of Sweden's short-lived immigration policy.
Yeah.
There's also an episode where we discuss military spending in more detail. Our show is a free buffet of delightful, delicious information and also quite funny, I like to think. So,
okay.
Thanks for tuning in.
Until next time, don't be a righty
or a lefty. Be
libertarians.
libertarians.